Metroid. Everybody loves Metroid, and if they don't, they're lying to you. It was only in the last few years that I became a big Metroid fan. I love Metroid Dread. That was my game of the year when it came out. It was so slick and precise, and it was tough. This wasn't a baby game like Mario Land. This was an adult game, like Mario World. I also reviewed the Metroid Prime Remaster a little while back. That's definitely one of my favorite games this year, and it's a GameCube game from 2002. That's how good Metroid is. But before even that, I actually did a full playthrough of Metroid on the NES. That's where it all began. When it comes to the NES, I would say Metroid is my favorite game next to Battletoads, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Punch-Out! Legend of Soda Popinski. A lot of similar NES games are insanely hard and not in a good way. There's a lot of nonsense that isn't even remotely fair and straight up poor design to give people the illusion that the game is way longer and has more content than it actually does because it takes 3 hours to get past a part that should typically take 5 minutes, except they keep spawning a guy right at the edge of a cliff that you already killed. The original Metroid is a lot more straightforward and reasonable by comparison, but even Metroid has some bumps in the road. Not even the best NES game of all time is immune from just being flat out stupid sometimes. I'm talking getting stuck in pits and being unable to get out, I'm talking cheap disproportionately punishing enemies, and I'm talking losing all your health when you respawn, forcing you to grind it back for 3 hours every single time you die. I mean, check this out, I gotta go through this door, shoot these 2 enemies, and pray that they drop some health, and I mean, look at how long it took to do that, and check it out. Look at how much health that gave me. Now look at how big my health bar is. Now do the math. This is how long it takes to get my health back at least. This is not fun, Nintendo. Why did you make this? And why did you make this? And why did you make this? What were they thinking? L Company, Ratio, you fell off. Xbox better. I did enjoy playing this game on original hardware, and I did feel accomplished when I beat it, but would I play it again in its original state? Yeah, I don't know about that. Today, Metroid has a chance to redeem itself with a fan-made remake that makes the game better. It's called Metroid Planets, and it even says right there on the main menu, straight up, the original Metroid, just better. That alone was enough to sell me on the game, but is it really better, or am I being tricked again? Before I begin, it is worth noting that there seem to be different versions of this game with different features, and also that the development, to my understanding, is ongoing. So if you're familiar with this game and you see something you didn't know about in this video, that might be why. Almost immediately, Metroid Planets is definitely way better than the original game. It became pretty clear to me within minutes of starting this game that this was my preferred way of playing Metroid. And compared to the original, which I do not see myself returning to anytime soon, I can definitely see myself playing this one again. If you look at a still screenshot, it's not immediately obvious, but that changes once you see it in motion. It uses the same pixel art, but now with additional effects and animations that all look impossibly smooth for NES. No more lagging or sprite flickering. Mankind is no longer bound by the technical limitations of the Nintendo Entertainment System. We have ascended to colonized cyberspace. Then you see the HUD, which is placed outside of the main game screen, which looks a lot cleaner. The new HUD is super helpful, due in no small part to the minimap in the corner. Seeing a minimap in this game is incredibly useful and streamlines a lot of the tedium from the original. Also, there is a timer right at the top right corner so you know how long you've been playing. Considering Metroid is the type of game that has always encouraged speedrunning, this is incredibly useful, so if you just really need to see Samus take her clothes off, you'll know if you did a good enough job.
Mei Ling, Samus took her clothes off.
But it's not just the little things like that, there are also big things that make the game way more fun to play. First off, the controls. Now, I'm not going to act like the original game had the worst controls known to mankind. On the contrary, the game was one of the better feeling NES titles in my book, but it was still, at the end of the day, an NES title. Like my grandma always said, you can put slightly better than usual controls on a pig, but at the end of the day, that pig is still an NES game. I always wondered what she meant by that, and now I know. This remake takes the already largely tight and responsive controls of Metroid and somehow makes them feel even better. Without a doubt, it's a big improvement. And speaking of big improvements, remember when you had to grind to refill your health bar? And remember how I despised doing that? Well, in this game, you get all your health back when you respawn, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's a miracle. I would say for that alone, this is the superior way to play this game. That was such an insufferable piss-off that it is wonderful to be free of. I already mentioned the visual component has been improved, but what I was really surprised by was the music. You have all the familiar tunes from the original, but jacked up to an insane degree. Their 8-bit origins are still very easy to hear, but they've been so dramatically turned up that they end up feeling brand new, while still fitting the rest of the game perfectly. It is spectacular. And on top of all of this, the game has a fully blown custom map creator. I didn't spend a lot of time here, but I did make this abomination of a level just to test it out. Not my finest achievement, but it demonstrates just how substantial this feature is. I think the developers realized that they had something special with this super smooth, reworked Metroid engine beyond just being a brushed up version of the original Metroid, and figured that it had some great potential for a Metroid maker. It is worth noting that this feature is still in beta, as are a lot of the features in this game. Another feature that kinda blew my mind is when you beat the game, it actually shows you a second-by-second play-by-play of your playthrough, showing where you went and in what order, down to the second. Considering it took me 4 hours to beat this game, that's a really impressive thing that I wasn't expecting. Look, it even provides timestamps for when you collect items and upgrades, and of course, die. It really does feel like a speedrunner conscious piece of work. I can see this being a very useful tool, not only for this game, but pretty much any game that encourages speedrunning. The original Metroid being a deeply flawed experience that I happen to treasure very highly, is a game that could have definitely benefited from a do-over, and from that angle, Metroid Planets is easily one of the best fan-made remakes I can remember seeing in recent years. I feel like it did everything right. It still felt like Metroid, and the brushed up mechanics and designs improved the experience without trivializing the difficulty by turning it into a cakewalk. It looks slicker, it sounds better, it plays better, and it's got all kinds of new features to brush it up to the standard of a new game. I guess you could say it's Metroid in its prime. Yeah, that's a wrap for today, but don't forget to tune in tomorrow. Can you guess what we're gonna talk about? I won't give it away, but you're gonna wanna pick it up big time. Alright, Merry Summer, y'all.